Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Radio Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care Technology, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about them, go to the top of the page on thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to welcome in my co-host, 1981 National Champion with the Indiana Hoosiers, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great today, Mike. Having fun. It's a beautiful day in Southern California.
Yeah, we're getting
no
5
rain,
inches of rain
no
here.
sleet.
So
how was your Halloween? Did you get tricked or treated?
I don't do either because I don't believe in Satan like you do.
Okay. All right. So did you just shut your house down and not let kids go? No, of course, you probably live out far in the sticks.
No, there's houses all around. We almost screwed up and left the outdoor light on too long, and there was some kids started to come up our driveway, and luckily, just in time, my son flipped the lights off.
I have a question. Are there houses around you or trailers?
Yeah, there's houses all around me.
Are there? Okay.
Yeah, we're the only trailer in the subdivision.
You're the only trailer in the subdivision.
Yeah.
How many in-laws are living in mobile homes outside of your driveways?
Oh, there's 5 of them just, inside. It's kind of like, what was that, Vegas Vacation or Vacation?
Uh-huh.
I got my cousin Eddie out there. He's got a mobile home. Yeah. But we pumped all the crap out, so we're good.
Does he have a plate in his head?
Yeah, he's got a metal plate in his head. But every good pastor has a metal plate in their head. We're born that way.
There you go.
All right, so our topic today is the top 10 college football programs of all time. And this is, what criteria did you use to come up with your top 10, Stephen?
Well, I did it on 3 things, basically. I thought total wins for the program was very important, national championships, and then I threw in Heisman Trophy winners, too. That they're able to produce a consistency of great players across the board. Conference titles was probably the last thing that I really looked at. But I pretty much went on longevity of the program. Like there was one great program that really didn't become great until the 80s, and I eliminated them from the top 10, although I think they're probably going to be in your top 10. They might be a top 10 program today. But I just looked at, they only really started being great in the early 80s or mid-80s. So I kind of said, they need a little bit more tenure being a good football program than that. How about you?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. But when teams are really dominant for a 30 or 40-year time slot,
right?
It's really hard to ignore that. And also, I probably put more credence into the last 30 or 40 years than you did, because to me, we're talking about the top 10 college football programs today. And I think over a length of time is huge, but I also think what you did the last 30 or 40 years is also huge.
Well, I disagree with you. I only think it's huge because it's been on television more. It's been media covered more, and you know more about this program.
Because right now, so Army is in yours.
No, Army's not in mine. No.
Why? They were maybe the best program in the first 50 years. But
they're not my top 10. They didn't make my top 10.
Okay, so then your criteria is the same as me because you put a lot more weight on now than then. So what is the difference between 1900 and 1950 and then 1950 to 2018?
Well, I think in this day and age, the problem I had with Army was that they were such at a recruiting advantage. They were getting all the great athletes at that point because it was the honor to go in the military, go to West Point. And the balance in recruiting now and the difficulty and the parity in college football over the last 50 years versus the first 50 years, Army was dominant early, but when the parity started coming out and the program started accelerating themselves, they fell off the face of the earth basically and became a very traditionally great football program, but not one who's very relevant anymore. That's just my impression.
Okay, so
they would probably be in my top 15, but because of their early success. But so I guess maybe it is a little bit of the more same criteria you use too. Yeah.
Okay.
But I like when I get to my top 2 or 3, it's going to be teams that have won forever. I mean, they've been perennially up there. And every year, these teams that will be in your top 3 or 4 are always mentioned. So, and somewhere down the road, some of them are just mentioned in the last 30 years, like you said. So,
well, I don't know of any that
anyway.
are mentioned just in the last 30 years. But let's go ahead and start
Miami.
off. Yeah, I know. Miami's just been good in the last 30 years.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a bit.
We'll get there. All right.
Let's start off. Who do you got at number 10?
I got Penn State. 845 wins, 2 national titles, 5 career championships, and they did have a John Capilouthi as a Heisman Trophy winner. I focused mostly on them. I think there's some teams that got maybe a couple more national championships, but 845 wins puts them almost near the top in college football in terms of total wins overall. And they've done it in playing. Well, no, I guess really they weren't in the Big Ten. When did Penn State come into the Big Ten?
Was it early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. They were an independent school up until then, pretty much, weren't they?
Yeah, they were an independent until then.
Yeah, independent school, yeah. So, but when they've won 5 Big Ten titles since they joined the Big Ten. I just had them at number 10. That's largely based on total number of career wins and the career of Joe Paterno, who was one of the greatest football coaches of all time, despite how his life and career tragically ended with the scandal. Up until that point, I think that he is one of the most well-respected and revered football coaches of all time in college football.
All right, so you
that was
have
my
Penn
number 10.
State. You rank Penn State over Miami.
No, I did not.
Okay, because you said before you didn't have Miami in there.
I did not say that.
Yeah, you did. You said that you'll have them in there, but I didn't. That's what you said.
No, I did not. I said I did not. Miami's in there for me.
All right. So as not to give you a hard time, I will let you know that my number 10 is the same as yours, which is Penn State. I put Penn State in there over Florida State just because of longevity, because a lot of people forget that Rip Engel was the coach at Penn State, came there from Brown in 1950. Engel posted a 104-48 record during his 16-year tenure. His 59 and 60 Nittany Lions teams won the Liberty Bowl, while his 61 and 62 teams reached the Gator Bowl, winning the first and losing the second. Then he retired, turned it over to Joe Paterno. But I think people forget the Rick Engel era, which is where the program really turned into a good program. So I agree with you. I've got them at number 10 also.
And to me, the only thing that hurt Florida State was that they only have 507 overall wins.
I don't really care about that. But.
Okay. That's fine. All right. Okay, well, so we both agree on number 10, Penn State.
Because then you got Michigan in the top 3, obviously, because they've won more games than anybody else.
I don't know. Let's get there. Find out.
Okay. Well, you have to, by your criteria you just said.
That was one of my criteria. My number
9, if I can get it out, is the Michigan Wolverines. I think the big drawback here is you're looking at only 3 national championships, and 2 of those were in the 1940s. The Maize and Blues had the most wins of all NCAA teams. They've been playing since 1879. They also played more games than anyone else. The negative for this powerhouse is they only have 2 major bowl wins since 1992. Not only that, but their most recent demise hasn't helped either. It does seem that Harbaugh's bringing them back. They're ranked 5th right now. But when I look at the history of Michigan, I think 1900 through early 1950s they were really good, and then you got a little dark period until Bo Schembechler comes back in '68. But still, I have a hard time putting them higher than number 9 just because they've only won 3 national championships.
Well, where do we get it? Because I have on my research, I have Michigan winning 11 national championships.
Okay, what years would those be?
We have to research that because it doesn't break it down. Because
there used to be like multiple newspapers that handed out national championships.
All right. Well, the research I did showed a whopping 11 national titles and 42 conference championships.
Okay. Well, I show 47, 48, 98.
Okay.
And my research is better than yours.
Well, the research I have shows that have 11 national championships. Now, again, it's all mythical up until the college playoffs started. Everybody was pretty much it's always been a mythical national championship. So maybe the breakdown is that they won it in one poll but not in the other. There was AP and UPI national champions.
Well, their claimed national championships are 1901, 1902, 1903, 1904, 1918, 1923, 1932, 1933, then 47, 48, and 97.
So we got 3 modern era national championships.
Yeah, there's 3 real national championships there.
Okay.
Because really, the AP poll, which was the one that everybody goes by now, which is why I came up with 3, wasn't established until 1936. And 8 of those 11 on there were done before 1936. So they're kind of newspaper print things. Right. And it doesn't change the fact that no matter how you cut it, in the last 60 years, they've won 1.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have them in my top 3, but I have them up higher than you. But then I'm basing it off my research, which obviously I didn't do as thorough a job as you did. I didn't read the Grueling Truth article on top 10 college football programs of all time that I saw when I Googled top college football programs of all time. So you actually wrote an article on it. I would have just used that, except I'm sure that's the list you're going off of. You wrote the article.
Actually, I'm not, because my number 10 was Florida State. I changed it to Penn State. But I would like to bring up the fact that 35,000 people read the article.
No, I'm not knocking the article. I wanted to use it, but I thought if I do that, then it's just a carbon copy. What's the point? Why are we even going to have this discussion then? Because I thought your article was well written and great information source, and anybody that's listening out there wants to know, you should go to the Grueling Truth, because you will find this kind of research and information on the Grueling Truth by our crack writers and researchers and broadcasters.
We got crack writers and
you get this kind of information, though, because if you were going to have your son write a paper on the 10 greatest college football programs for all time, you can just plagiarize Mike's article.
Yeah, and then
you probably would get an A on it.
I'll sue you to the utmost. All right, what do you got at number 9, Steve?
Number 9, I have Miami. I have the Hurricanes. And the only thing that hurt the Hurricanes to me was, they're looking at only 554 wins, but they do have 5 national titles, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, but most of that started after the early 80s.
Well, see, I disagree with that. The Miami Hurricanes in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s were a really good program. They went to crap after 1967. But if you look at it, there weren't a whole lot of bowl games back in the day. So you had to be pretty good to get in a bowl game. And if you look at it, they played in the Orange Bowl in 35, 46, 51, 52, Liberty Bowl in 61, the Gotham Bowl in 1962 against Nebraska, which they lost by 2 points. They played in the 66 Liberty Bowl against Virginia Tech. They played the 67 Blue Bonnet. And then the program went to crap. And the program was so bad for a little over a decade that they actually thought about doing away with the program until
I remember
Schellenberg got there.
Schellenberger came in '83, and he kind of really rebirthed the program. Came here from Louisville, didn't he? Wasn't he at Louisville prior to that?
Schellenberger later went to Louisville, but Schellenberger, I think, got there in 1979.
Was it?
I think it was 79, because he built that program from nothing. And the first win that I remember that was really huge for them was 1981. They played Penn State, and Penn State had Jim Kelly and Kurt Warner. They were one of the best teams in the country. Jim Kelly played for Miami, I'm sorry, but Kurt Warner, Todd Blackledge, those guys, 1981, went down to Miami, and Miami beat them, I think it was like 26-10. And from then, the program just kind of took off, and of course, we already know what they did to Notre Dame.
Is Kurt Warner that old?
Kurt Warner with a C, the running back. He played for the Seattle Seahawks, Pro Bowl running back. And also, if you go to thegruelingtruth.net and put Kurt Warner with a C in the search bar, you'll see where me and Matt Andrews-Scavage interviewed him about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It's a really good interview. The other thing about them is their all-time record is, they've won 64% of the games they've ever played.
Right.
They've got 5 claimed national titles. And really, I don't completely disagree with you, because I've got them at number 8. So we'll just play it off.
When I was assigning points to try and get a ranking system, trying to come up with something, the only thing that hurt them was 554 wins relative to the teams that are ranked ahead. I have ranked ahead of them. They're low on total wins.
Well, actually, they're
in their
634 wins, and that was going into the season. So they're like 640 now.
All right.
I think since 1980, outside of Alabama, they've been the top program. The history before 1970, like I said, is pretty solid. And outside of 70 through 78, they've always been a solid program. They took off under Howard Schnellenberger, won maybe the greatest football game I've ever seen in the '84 Orange Bowl when they upset Tom Osborne's Nebraska Cornhuskers. And from there, it just kind of took off from Jimmy Johnson to Dennis Erickson to Larry Coker. And the 2001 team is considered by some as the greatest team in college football history. And like I said, the other reason they're not in my top three is because they were just a solid program until Howard Schnellenberger got there.
And then Jimmy Johnson comes in.
Yeah, and then Dennis Erickson.
Yeah, and then they were right. Then at that point, they were one of the two best programs in the country.
Well, at that point, I think there's no doubt from 1980 through 2001, they're probably by far the best program in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 5 national championships in less than 20 years. Yeah.
Like I said, to me, just the longevity, a consistent longevity of the life of the program hurt them in the rankings for me. But other than that, I can't fault the fact that Miami is, in this current day and age, looked at as definitely a top 10. And when you start shifting to the top 10, you're splitting hairs at that point in time.
Well, and really, when you brought up a team like Army was dominant from the early 1900s to probably the mid-1950s. But the problem is, from then on, they're not a solid program. I mean, they're a program that occasionally is good. Where Miami was solid for those first 40 years, they had a bad 10-year run, and then they were dominant. So that's why I would put a team like Miami over Army, even though if you look at total wins, hell, Army might be ahead of them.
I'm sure Army is ahead of them, yeah.
Yeah, just because they've.
And I don't know what Army's total wins are, but
I don't know if I'm sure anymore. Army's had some rough years over the last couple decades.
Well, yeah, but they are dominated in the first half of the century. I bet they've got to have over 500.
Yeah, the first half of the century, basically, it was Michigan, Notre Dame, Army.
In Army, right.
And Navy was pretty good back then, too.
Right.
All right, who's your number 8?
I got Texas.
Well, damn, you're on a roll because my number 7 is Texas. But go ahead.
Yeah, total 840. Well, okay, I'll let you. I don't want to do every one because I'm picking one ahead of you. So you go ahead and talk about Texas.
I've got them a little higher. You look at them; they've got 4 consistent national championships: 63, 69, 70, and 05. They also have 2 Heisman winners in Earl Campbell and Ricky Williams. They've been playing football since 1893. I mean, in reality, I think the accomplishments of a program like Miami have probably passed Texas, even though they haven't been around nearly as long.
Well, they have recently, but I think in the 70s.
But what I'm saying is what they did over that 20-year period may be more than what Texas did the whole time. But I put Texas there. It's a legendary program. Probably the greatest coach in Texas history was Darrell Royal. But since he's
over 50,
yeah, since he's left, things haven't been quite the same. I do think under Coach Tom Herman that they are getting back to where a year or two from now they're going to compete for a national championship every year again. But my number 7 is Texas. Do you want to add anything?
Texas, no. The only thing I'd say well over 50 bowl game appearances by Texas, which I think is strong, which basically means every other year, a minimum to the life of their program, they're playing in a bowl game somewhere, which I don't know how many teams can say they do that. There are obviously all top 10 teams we're going to mention, I'm sure, have over 50 bowl appearances, but that's just another thing to add into what you said. So, yeah, I had them at number 8.
All right.
Mostly because they haven't done much in the last 10 years.
What do you got at number 7?
I got Nebraska, the Cornhuskers. 854 wins, 5 national titles claimed, 43 conference titles, and 3 Heisman Trophy winners.
Got anything else to say?
Not really. I don't go into the.
That was your number detail. 7. See, I think you're nuts. I think that's way too low. Who do you got? My number 6 is going to shock you, but it's Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame compares to Nebraska. And the reason I don't think that is this. I mean, the Irish have won 8 national championships. I mean, not counting the stuff before 30-something. They probably really won more. 7 Heisman winners. Touchdown Jesus, the movie Rudy, even though most of it was made up. The fight song everybody knows. Their own TV contract. From Rockne to Leahy, era to Holtz, the tradition is long and hard to top. But my problem is this. When you look at the national championships, the last one was in '88. And since 1973, they've only won one. And I think since Dan Devine was let go in the early 1980s, things have not been as great for the Irish. Remember Faust Weiss, Willingham, Davey, and now Brian Kelly. Kelly's doing a decent job there. But this is a program for me that has been not completely irrelevant, but damn near irrelevant since the mid-'90s. And I don't think they've even been one of the top 5 programs since the early to mid-1980s, Steve.
Did they play for the national championship last year, or was that 2 years ago?
2012, they got put in because of TV ratings, and Alabama beat them 45-12.
Okay, it was 2012. Was that long ago, really? Wow.
Yeah.
God, time goes by. Yeah.
But that team didn't belong there.
I have Notre Dame not at number 1 by any stretch of the imagination, but I have them ranked higher. That's the most storied college football program of all time. When you think of college football, you think of Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame, the thing about Notre Dame is that they're one of the 2 football programs that walk around every day with the biggest bullseye and target on their back. That beating Notre Dame is a headline in your yearbook every year, no matter what their record is, what they do. We beat Notre Dame. It's still, even today, even in the down period, which I agree after Devine, that they still, to go and play Notre Dame and play at Notre Dame Stadium, which is one of the most storied football stadiums of all time. There is just too much good about Notre Dame, too much history there, the course of time of which they've done everything, the coaches they produced, how many Heisman Trophy winners have they produced? 11? 7? 11?
7. But you've got Rockne Leahy era. That's your 3. And Devine, to me, was a great coach. But yeah. Devine's been gone
there are
for
those of you
40
who will disagree
years.
with you on Holtz. There are those of you who will disagree. I know you think Holtz is a scumbag. I didn't say there are those that will. There are those that will, but there are those that will say Holtz belongs right up there with those other guys.
Really? I don't think there is anybody in the world that thinks Lou Holtz belongs up there with Parsegian, Leahy, and Newt Rockne.
Okay. All right. Well, nonetheless, we'll go on. So, where are we at in the rankings? That was your number. I haven't given my number 7 was Nebraska. My number 6 is right there with them, the Oklahoma Sooners.
Really? You got Oklahoma at number 6?
Heck yeah. Over 800 wins, 7 national titles, claimed national titles, 44 conference titles, producing 5 Heisman Trophy winners, including the likes of Billy Vessel, Steve Owens, Billy Sims, Jason White, Sam Bradford, and Baker Mayfield. And my dogs even like that pick.
Yeah, it's a horrible pick because I think they should be much higher. Also, Lou Holtz, just to go back to that, NC State, Minnesota, Arkansas, Notre Dame, and South Carolina have found to have violated NCAA rules under the leadership of Holtz. Holtz was also found guilty of overseeing the Notre Dame football team when they were caught distributing steroids in the locker room during the 80s and the early 90s. But magically, the NCAA allowed the Irish to handle the matter internally.
I retract my statement on Lou Holtz. Come on.
Let's see. Yeah, I've got Oklahoma actually much higher.
Okay. And I wrestled with that one because it just got to be the thing of what have you done for me lately in Oklahoma, really. They're just coming back into relevance now. They've kind of always lurked in the top 20 all the time, but they seem to have lately not been able to put themselves over that hump to where they're a power so dominant that they're playing for a national title. You can't argue with 7 claimed national titles, 800.
They won 7 national championships, 45 conference.
Okay, yeah. Well, I like the word
5
claimed because I'm just throwing that in because mythical. It's like I don't want to use the word mythical, but claimed is a better word to use because until we started the college football playoffs, everything was a mythical national champion. There was no real true national champion. There was a ranking of teams that got voted by somebody's opinion national champion. Unlike the NCAA basketball tournament,
it's still that way.
Produces
It's still
for the
an
most
opinion.
part the way it is. Right, but at least they put 4 teams out there and throw the rankings aside, let them just play. So they do that now. But
all right.
So I have Oklahoma at number 6. It's a great football program. When you think of great football programs,
all I know is you've got them way too low. They should be much higher.
I still think to this day, one of the 2 or 3 greatest sports rivalries of all time is Oklahoma-Nebraska. In its heyday,
of Nebraska, I've got Nebraska at number 5. They had 9+ win seasons for 30 straight years, from 1968 to 2001. Most of that under Tom Osborne, the other under Bob Devaney. Probably the 1995 National Championship to me is the greatest team I've ever seen. Them and the 01 Hurricanes. They have 5 national championships. They've had 3 Heisman Trophy winners. They had a record 35 consecutive bowl appearances from 1969 to 2003. The problem lies in since Tom Osborne left, which is why I have them at number 5, and which I think there is no way they could ever be above Oklahoma, Steve. Who do you got at number 5?
Number 5, I got the Buckeyes of Ohio State University. 778, over 700 wins. Again, because I don't know what, when you do your research, you don't know what point their cutoff point is. So I'm just going to say, well over almost 800 wins, 8 claimed national titles, 36 conference titles, producing 7 Heisman. And to me, that's the strength. A program like that producing 7 Heisman Trophy winners. That's the mark. I mean, those are all marks of a great football program right there. And Ohio State is still relevant every year right now. And I know you don't like Urban Meyer, but I can't gauge the life of a football program over one coach who you think is a screwball. And
I've got Ohio State much higher than you do. I don't know why you'd have it so low. Who do you got at number 4?
Well, who's your number 5?
Oh, I already gave it to you, Nebraska.
Nebraska. All right. Okay, my number 4, right with them, the Wolverines of Michigan. Well, over 900 wins, 11 claimed national titles. Now, I like your argument. There are only 3 of them relevant.
3 national championships.
Okay, all right, and I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you that. The 3 national titles, but still,
and even
42 conference titles.
Even if you didn't give it to me, I mean, all Armies are in the first 50 years too, much like Michigan, except for 1998. So,
all right, the Wolverines have won more games than any other team in the football bowl subdivision in the BCS eligible teams. They've won more games. They're the number 1 winning team of all time there. They have some other statistics. 39 former coaches and players have been inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. And basically, Michigan's another program that's relevant and mentioned every year, no matter what. And they've gone through a couple lean years too, but I think Harbaugh's bringing that program back into the fold. I think Harbaugh's getting his footing down, and I think that Michigan right now could win a national championship this year, the way they're playing right now, if they can get through the Big Ten.
All right,
that was my number
4. My number 4 is the USC Trojans. The Minute Troy are tied for first with 7 Heisman Trophy winners, of course, with the aforementioned Ohio State. They also have 7 national championships, known as Tailback U because of backs like O.J. Simpson, Marcus Allen, Ricky Bell, Reggie Bush, Anthony Davis. I mean, the list can go on forever.
Yeah.
They had a stretch from 1989 to 2001 where they didn't have a single 10-win season, which I think drops them out of my top 3. You had coaching legends like John McKay and John Robinson, who turned it into a juggernaut, and then Pete Carroll continued the tradition until he had to leave because he was caught cheating. But I got USC at number 4, and I'll continue this on, and I'll go to my number 3 because you've already mentioned them, which is the Ohio State Buckeyes. 6 national championships, 7 Heisman Trophy winners. The thing is, I don't think there's not too many places that can claim the kind of coaches that they've had over the history of their program. Because when you look at the history of the program, you got Paul Brown, Woody Hayes. Now, of course, you got Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, who were good coaches. But just Paul Brown and Woody Hayes, 2 of the greatest coaches of all time. Earl Bruce was a great coach. He got screwed over there, averaged 9 or 10 wins a season, and they still ran him out of Dodge because he followed Woody Hayes. So no matter what he did, he was never going to be able to keep his job there. because
Right.
Ohio State fans usually aren't the brightest people in the world. And I think the rivalry with Michigan is at the top of any rivalry list. And if I offended you and you're a Michigan or an Ohio State fan, well, that's what I was shooting for. So my number 3 is Ohio State. How about you, Steve?
I have USC at number 3, so we're just flip-flopping there. Yeah.
And my difference with them right there is USC, they were good before 1950, but Ohio State, I mean, you had Paul Brown there, and they had a really good program before Woody Hayes. People forget Paul Brown was even there. So, yeah, I think those are kind of toss-ups. You could throw them anywhere.
Interchangeable.
We at number 2?
We're at number 2.
Who you got?
Let's see, you're going to rip me here. I got Notre Dame at number 2.
Okay.
800 wins, 11 claimed national titles. Of course, they never won a conference championship because they're one of the few programs that remains an independent program. One of the most storied stadiums in all of football. One of the most great things that involve movies about college football involved Notre Dame at some point in time. Notre Dame or Army, and they too have produced 7 Heisman Trophy winners along with Ohio State and USC. Coaches, like you mentioned, and we've already talked about Notre Dame. And I got to tell you, I got a soft spot in my heart for Notre Dame. I've loved Notre Dame football since I can remember. So I probably am being a little biased on that. But when I think college football, I think 2 programs. I think Notre Dame and my number 1 picks right up the top. But it's usually you don't mention college football in the historical sense without mentioning Notre Dame in there. And to me, that's the mark of one of the most storied and great college football programs of all time. They've done it forever. And every program goes through its period, and it's up and down. But Notre Dame's always been a relevant program. And they get breaks because they're Notre Dame. So we both agree there. They get it, like you said, 2012, they got into the thing when they shouldn't have, but they got in because they're Notre Dame. And they're ranked number 3 in the country right now because they're Notre Dame. And they're undefeated. And I don't think they're one of the 3 best football teams in the country right now. But if they stay status quo, they're going to play for the national championship because they're Notre Dame.
All right. My number 2 is Alabama.
Ooh, interesting.
Alabama has almost 900 wins. Has won 29 conference championships. I think it's up to 30 now because I'm looking off my thing now, and I wrote it a year ago. Mm-hmm. They've had 35 10-win seasons, plus 1 vacated 10-win season, 35 bowl victories. That's 36 now, both NCAA records, 10 undefeated seasons, 9 of which were perfect seasons. So I assume there's a tie in there. That's why you had the difference. You had Bear Bryant from 61 through 66, and the 77 through 79 were 2 of the greatest college dynasties of all time. You already know what Nick Saban's doing, which may be putting together the greatest, lengthiest college dynasty of all time by the time he's done. But at number 2, I've got Alabama, so I'll let you talk about them now because they're obviously your number 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said everything about Alabama. There's nothing much more to add. 16 acclaimed national titles, 26 conference titles in the SEC, produced 3 Heisman Trophy winners, including Joe Namath, and arguably Kenny Stabler, who many claim was a better quarterback than Joe Namath was. So some just great football players up and down the path. Every year, their almost entire offensive line gets drafted. They're almost like Kentucky in basketball, where your second string gets drafted in the NBA. A lot of their second string players end up being stars in the NFL, or players in the NFL. I mean, that program's so deep, and I would guess at this point, Saban's a lot like Calipari in the sense that he doesn't recruit much. He gets resumes sent to his desk, and he picks and chooses who he wants, because most of Alabama's second string could probably start its own college and play and probably be in the top 10 in the rankings. But it's hard to argue with the tradition and history and the success. I agree with you. Saban is putting Alabama on that same plane with Notre Dame. And the reason I chose Alabama over Notre Dame is they're doing it now, which I think is the most competitive era ever in college football. I mean, when you've got a college football team that's gone almost 2 complete seasons now undefeated, and they can't even have an opportunity to play, can't crack the top 10, you're talking about every game these guys play, whether it's a punch team or not, there's a risk of losing it, and that didn't used to be that way in college football. And what Alabama's doing at this point now is nothing short of phenomenal to win every year.
All right. So you probably want to know who my number one is, right?
Well, let me see if I can take a guess. Let me see if I can guess who's not been mentioned that you would have as number one. That wouldn't be Army. Let me see. There's no other SEC school. Man, I'll tell you what, you got me perplexed. Go ahead.
All right. Number one college football program of all time, and most people are going to laugh, but just hear me out. Number one, the Oklahoma Sooners. The program began in 1895, one of the most successful programs since World War II, the most wins since World War II, with well over 600 wins just since World War II. They have a winning percentage since World War II, ended in 1945, of almost 77%. The program has 7 national championships in that time, 45 conference championships, 154 All-Americans, 76 consensus, 5 Heisman Trophy winners. In addition, the school has had 23 members, 5 coaches, and 18 players inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. They hold a record for the longest winning streak in Division I history with 47 straight wins, a record that still stands to this day that nobody's even sniffed. Oklahoma is the only program that has had 4 coaches with 100-plus wins, including, Bob Stoops, who was there, Bud Wilkinson, Barry Switzer, 4 coaches with over 100 wins each. They became the 6th NCAA FBS team to win 850 games when they defeated the Kansas Jayhawks in 2014. So from Bud Wilkinson to Barry Switzer, later Coach Stoops, the Sooners have, for the better part of 70 years, been in national title contention. Throw in they are part of not just one, but 2 of college football's most bitter rivalries. I mean, when you list the top 10 rivalries in college football history, Oklahoma-Nebraska is there, but then you got the Red River Showdown with Texas also, which is still, to this day, and I know you watched that game this year, I think, Steve, Oklahoma-Texas, is still one of the most bitter rivalries out there. So my number one's a little bit different than everybody else's. From 1945 to now, this team had a few years after Barry Switzer left where they had some dark times. But other than that, this team's top 10 every year since 1945 outside of a handful of years. And with Alabama, when Bear Bryant left, from 1983 to the early 2000s, I mean, they had the 93 season when they won it all. But other than a couple years there in the early 90s, Alabama had a 20-year period where they really were not relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't argue with 16 claimed national championships, though.
Huh?
Well, with Alabama, I mean, yeah, I don't.
16
I'm not going to fight
national championships. The hell does
Alabama
that mean? Yeah. I just argued with it, Steve.
Okay. Well, it's a good point. That's not a far off choice.
Well, I'm just saying, consistently, nobody has been better than them.
Your argument is well taken, and probably correct.
No, it is correct. Don't doubt me, Steve.
But, I mean, you can't knock. I'm not going to knock Oklahoma. I don't think they're the number one college football program of all time.
All right, remember this. Alabama, 1925, 26, 30, 34, all before the AP. There you go.
Okay, that leaves them 12 or 13 claimed national championships.
Yeah, and that
legitimate.
leaves them a time between 1942 and the time Bear Bryant got there in 59, a 17-year void where they were not very good. And then you've got from 1982, 83, where Bear Bryant left, until the mid-2000s, where you had the 92 national championship team, but nothing else. I'm just saying, with Oklahoma, you got 1 4 or 5 year stretch where they weren't that good, and that's it. And that was because Barry Switzer was a cheater. But not that much of a cheater, because I've had Jackie Sherrill on before, and I would really like to have Barry Switzer on. So, Barry, I was just kidding. And Steve Risley called you a cheater. I'm defending him and saying you weren't.
When did I call him a cheater?
You just did it again. Stop doing it.
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry, Barry.
Let me see. I've got to see something here. I want to look at something here. Hang on. Let me go ahead and keep rambling like you are doing an eloquent job of doing.
I didn't have anything else to ramble about.
Let me look at something.
What are you looking at?
Hang on here.
What are you looking at?
I'm going to go look here at the Grueling Truth's top 10 football programs that you wrote the article, and I'm going to see who you had at number one when you wrote your article.
You're not going to do that. There's no reason
I just did it.
It's a waste of time.
You had Oklahoma number 2. You had Alabama at number 1.
But in the last year, I have obviously changed my mind.
In your own article, you put Alabama at number 1.
Yeah.
You wrote the article.
I was.
Let me read. Okay, people out here.
Alabama fans.
Here's Mike's.
Hold on. Where's the mute button for Risley?
Alabama had
There's a mute
864
button here somewhere.
official victories. 21 victories were vacated. Okay, and has made NCAA ranks 62 preseason bowl record appearances. Other NC records, and this is Mike's writing now: 23 10-game wins, 19 seasons with a 10-0 start.
Nobody cares what I wrote. They're listening to this
is what
show.
you wrote.
Hey,
Bear Bryant, you wrote that, and let me see what you said about Oklahoma. The program began in 1895 as one of the most successful programs since World War II with the most wins,
yeah, what
the
I
highest
just
winning
said.
percentage. Okay. 154 All-Americans. Okay. From Bud Wilkinson to Barry Switzer. This is, okay, in your own article. Your own article.
But I changed my mind. When that article was written like 2 years ago or a year ago.
Oh, okay. And in the last 2 years, who's won the national championship? Clemson and Alabama. Where's Oklahoma in the last 2 years?
Well, they were in the Final
So
Four
what
last year.
predicated you to change your mind? What made Oklahoma Baker Mayfield? Is that the reason you put
I think
Oklahoma
what
in front
really
of
predicated
Alabama?
me to change my mind is I thought it'd be really boring if we both picked Alabama. All right,
Okay, well,
I
just
admit
admit that.
I'm Stephen A.
So
Smith in
admit
this
it.
bad boy.
So what you're really saying
I
is,
just
in your talented wisdom of
yeah, but you
sports
had
journalism,
Oklahoma like number 7, which is a joke because when you look at the stats and everything that's happened, Oklahoma destroys Notre Dame.
No, I didn't. I read Matt Androvich's article on top 10 college football programs of all time. He had him at number 7.
But it's absolutely stupid to have Oklahoma at number 7.
It doesn't matter. You sat there in your own article that you put on your website, and you have Alabama number 1. You're going to turn around and argue with me that Oklahoma is better than Alabama.
Yeah.
Shame, shame,
this
shame.
is the thing.
As
Until you
Gomer Pyle
looked
would
at that,
say,
you were
shame.
doubting your pick, weren't you, Steve? You were doubting your pick. You're like, oh, man, I didn't know Oklahoma was that good.
No, I didn't know Oklahoma was that good.
See?
I didn't.
So now what I've done is this, all right?
But it doesn't change my mind that Alabama, I think, is still right now the best college football program of all time.
It will change your mind about Oklahoma being at number 7, which was absolutely insane.
I think I had them at number 6, didn't I?
It was 6 or 7.
I had them at number 6.
You had them behind Notre Dame, dude. You had them behind Ohio State.
And the only reason I had them at 6 is because I'm preferential to the Big Ten with Ohio State and Michigan at 5 and 4. And I don't think that Oklahoma is a better college football program than Notre Dame, Alabama, or USC.
It's a lot.
I think they're right up there with those 4.
Oklahoma. Oh, come
right
on. Oklahoma overall destroys them all, except for Alabama.
They don't. But you, in your own article, have Alabama, and that's great. You made my day.
But it's also brilliant to be able to argue it both ways.
You don't even believe what you write.
Yeah, I do. I didn't believe
you don't
what
believe
I said,
what you write.
But I was trying to show you. My whole point of that was to show you that Oklahoma is nowhere near the 6th or 7th best program in the country.
Okay.
This is why you have a hard time keeping friends.
Why? Because I didn't write your article. I did research.
D. Rose scored 50 points last night and left the game in tears.
Why did you leave the game in tears?
I don't know. Because my son sent me a text last night. He's like, D. Rose, because my son always loved D. Rose. He even had a Bulls jersey with Rose on it. And
are you trying to change the subject? Are you trying to change the subject? We're not talking about NBA basketball right now.
I think I successfully did change the subject. But my son, because I'm just going to talk over you or hit mute. But no, he sends me this message that D Rose just scored 50 points and he was back. And then I texted him, "Oh, I just heard that getting out of the shower, he twisted his ankle and he's out for the season."
Oh, okay. So let me ask you a question now. Are you going to rewrite this article now?
What article? What are you talking about? I can't change
an article.
You know what?
You,
Donald Trump used to be a Democrat, and he changed to being a Republican within a year or two. It's the same thing I did.
This article was posted by you on April 22nd, 2018.
No, it was actually written. It was written in 2016. No, I just reposted it because so many people read it the first time, and even more people read it the second time that way.
So what you're saying is you don't update your research when you repost.
Oh no, people don't care. People just read.
All right, folks, go to the Grueling Truth. Look up the article. Top 10 college football programs of all time, written by Mike Goodpaster. Posted on April 22nd, 2018. 34,000 reads, and you misled people.
I didn't mislead anybody.
False news.
No, it's not fake news. What it is I just changed my mind. Why can't somebody change? Why can't a brother change his mind? That's all I did. I changed my mind. And now you're getting all crappy with me because you think you got me, and you don't because I just changed my mind.
I got you because you're flustered. You're wanting to mute me. You're wanting to change the subject
if I wanted
to
to mute you, I would just
want to get off this article as fast as you can.
No, if that was the true, I would already have texted Colin Hartman to see if he just wanted to do this show every day with me at noon.
Go ahead.
But
feel free. He's not going to be as funny as I can be.
Funny ha-ha or funny never mind? All right. Hey, I would like to thank, I do have this, though. Just on Spreaker, the website, and YouTube alone, last month in October, the Grueling Truth Survive in Advance daily show of me and Steve had over 97,000 listeners, and we would like to thank every one of you, and Steve will actually come to each one of your houses during the month of November and thank each and one of you individually.
I'll help put up your Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
I'm tall.
So when you throw in Spotify and stuff, there's been like well over 100,000 people that listen to this mess, and we would just like to say we appreciate it.
It's because we do true investigative journalism. We weed out the fake news, like I'm changing my mind from Alabama to Oklahoma.
That's not fake news. I just changed my mind. Jeez. I'll tell you what. Isaiah Thomas was right about you. All right. So, also, I wanted to bring up real quick that San Francisco Giant legend Willie McCovey passed away. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Truly a great baseball player. He was one of my favorite baseball players. He really was, too. And I remember, I think I saw his last game because they showed it, like the NBC game in a week or something. But I remember the Giants played maybe the Dodgers or something. I think it was right around 1980. Seems like he was as great a man as he was a player. So we'd like to send our condolences to the McCovey family and to all the San Francisco Giants fans. Truly,
I agree. Over 550 career home runs. I think he played 18 of his 20-year career with San Francisco Giants.
Yep.
So he played all but 2 years. I think I saw and heard when I was, listening to the remembrance of him. And truly, I mean, again, having not been a big baseball fan all of my life, not really, getting that involved in baseball to a great degree, that's a name that I know as well as Willie Mays or Babe Ruth or anybody. Willie McCovey is a well-known name in the game and truly one of the sport's greatest players of all time. And it sucks getting old. It sucks losing somebody of that caliber. And he will be missed by the Giants family, I'm sure by his own personal family, and by all the sports fans that knew him and knew what he did on the baseball diamond.
All right. Also, the Green Bay Packer family lost Bob Skorinski, who died at the age of 84 yesterday. He was one of the great offensive linemen in Packer history, number 76. He was the offensive captain of Vince Lombardi's teams that won a record-tying 3 straight NFL championships in the 1960s, and one of only 9 to play on all 9 of Lombardi's teams in Green Bay. He died Tuesday morning in a suburb outside of Madison, Wisconsin. Skorinski passed away, of course, at the age of 84, died of Alzheimer's. So we also would like to say a prayer for the Skoronski family, and tell the Green Bay Packer. I still don't like Green Bay Packer fans, but I do respect anybody that played for Vince Lombardi. So our best wishes go out to the Bob Skoronski family.
And I've got a little tie there. One of his sons was a manager of our '81 National Championship basketball team.
Well, let's have him on.
I try and track Steve down and see. He's a very successful business person at this point in his life. I think he owns a medical equipment company. It's done extremely well. But he was the head manager for our program in 1981. He traveled with the team routinely and was all-around class guy.
Well, I'll make this claim, too. From the film I've watched, I think Skoronski was maybe the second-best lineman on that team, and he's about the only lineman on that team that's not in the Hall of Fame, I think, right now. That's that product. They've talked about that, the oversaturation of Packer players from Lombardi era. Yeah,
and it almost works against guys like
Kramer was as good as Skoronski.
He was more celebrated, though. But I don't. You're right. Not as great a player, but more celebrated a player, because he was always the one that was leading in front of Taylor and Horning as they were running the power sweep. It was always him and Fuzzy Thurston.
Yeah.
Out there leading the charge, and not Skoronski. And unfortunately, those guys in the pictures, they're in every picture, so they get the recognition. While guys like Skoronski, gutted out in the trenches with those guys. And you're right. Your observation, I believe, is accurate. But unfortunately, we tend to make decisions based on what other people feed us, and we're all about packaging. And the other guys get better packaged than Skoronski does. And unfortunately, now the theory is there's an oversaturation of Lombardi players, and they almost have stopped putting them in because they think that there's too many of them in there, which is wrong. That their era and dynasty of football, with Lombardi's era, the Packers net run they made in the '60s, was arguably the greatest run of any football team. And you could argue the Pats now. The Pats are still going, so it's one of the two greatest runs. Not to get another argument with you. And I'm not going to define which is the better coach, Belichick or Lombardi. They're both great coaches.
Belichick.
We did that, right. And I would tend to agree with you. Belichick probably is a better coach,
but
across the board.
So, once again, we want to thank all the listeners out there. You can follow us.
Yeah, we do, really. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you can follow us at Grilling Truth or at Survive the Magic on Twitter. Go like our Facebook page, follow us there. And we will be back tomorrow with a college and NFL preview show for the weekend, so make sure you check us out there. And then, of course, Monday.
Hey, Mike, can I add something?
Sure.
Can I add something? So, well, it's already kind of started, but tonight, really, in my eyes, because we do a show, college basketball kind of gets into full swing now. Most teams are playing their exhibition games this week. Indiana plays the vaunted power of Southern Indiana University, which actually is a good program, a perennial D2 powerhouse. Not that I think they're going to give Indiana a big threat. They might. We don't know anything about Indiana yet. But we have moved our standard Wednesday program to a Friday night now, just for this week to accommodate the games of tonight. So we'll be able to discuss our first viewing of the current Indiana program and be able to get into a situation to talk about college basketball, as this week pretty well is all the exhibition games, and then really starting over the weekend, most of the first regular season games will start being played the next week, first week in November, and we're into March Madness. It's already starting in November.
And tomorrow night you can catch me, Colin Hartman, Steve Risley on the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show at 6 o'clock Eastern Time on thegruelingtruth.net. We'll be recapping tonight's Indiana versus Southern Indiana exhibition game, so make sure you check us out there. All right, we're going to wrap it up, Steve. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.